for the Gunners tomorrow in that game. We've talked about Bukayo Saka over the course of the last few seasons as being Arsenal's most important player. In terms of players who can somehow drag them across the line, end this long wait for a title, is the man we just heard from right now the most important player in doing that?
Yeah, 100%. I want 11 Declan Rices, please. And I think if they did have 11 Declan Rices, they would have already won this title.
You've seen him in goal?
He's amazing. Forget where he plays. It's just his drive. If he doesn't play well, you make players around him better. And I believe he's authentic. I believe what he says. You know, there's no acting there. I just think it's tough for him at the moment, and it's going to be tough. But I think Declan's absolutely right there. They have to have a positive mindset. The 5 points clear. They would have took that at the beginning of the season. Forget what's gone. Forget that they drew 2-2 with Wolves, the worst team, you know, nearly in the history of the Premier League, with a 2-goal lead, and they throw it away. They have to forget all of that. They have to really...
How do you, though, forget that, as I mentioned right at the start, it's only 2 weeks ago. Merce was sat here talking about that 9-point lead at the end of the Saturday show.
It's gone. And why people... Because I've been in that position myself. The reason why people ask you about, is it you going to bottle it? Is it about the mentality? It's because you're in it. You know, people are not asking Liverpool players about there because they're not in it. They're not asking Chelsea players because they're not in it. Not Tottenham players, not Man United.
So you want to be
players.
asked those questions?
Of course you want to, because you have to embrace that. You just say, we're asking them questions and we love it because that means we're in it. The unfortunate thing is for Arsenal is they've been in there for the last 3 years and they've come up second. So everyone's going to point the finger and say they do it again. There's going to have to be a time when they do get over the line. And if they do get over the line, they could be a real threat. But it gets harder. If you was not to do it this year, it will get harder again next year because other teams will get better. And I think they've had a fantastic lead. Of course they have. But forget about it now. It's a clean slate. I hear Mikel Arteta talking about this might be the game we need, a North London derby. But it might be also the game that Tottenham need, an Igor Tudor.
Yeah. It's massive, simply huge for both sides, and we'll look at it in more detail in a short while. But Clinton, reflecting on what happened at Wednesday night on Molineux, they're 2-0 up, and then dramatically right at the end, they leave Molineux with a point. We were arguing that the point against Brentford away, the game before in the Premier League, was a good point. This was definitely not a good point given the position they were in. So how then, picking up on what Tim was saying there, do they make sure that there aren't mental scars that develop from this game?
See, it's getting over the line, and Tim would be the best because obviously he's won the league, so he's just explained it to you brilliantly. But it's about getting over the line for them at the moment. And they're making big mistakes. They weren't making these mistakes earlier on in the season where you don't need to come David Raya. Gabriel's going to deal with that and just head it, and you can see there's
Are you seeing a nervous?
Yeah, there is a nervous.
backline?
They are nervous because they don't know how to get over the line at the moment, and they're nervous. But they're still ahead. It's still in their hands. They need to stop panicking.
But it's February.
That's what. But we're talking about it. Everyone's talking about it. So they're going to listen to noises. Even though you say, all right, we're going to stick to what's happening in the camp, you're still going to listen to it. Look, you see one of the coaches arguing with one of the Wolves bench. Everyone's in their emotions at the moment because they know they're so close, Arsenal. But these kind of results where you're 2-0 up and you're comfortable in the game and you can see so late in the game, it's frustrating. But they've got to stick together. And that interview we've seen from Declan Rice, I do think he's the most important player for them.
Should he be captain?
Listen, in my opinion, he should be captain. Odegaard is the captain. When you go onto that pitch, it doesn't matter if Tim's got the captain on. You can still be the captain. You can still be the captain, and he leads in different ways. And if you're not doing it, Declan Rice will speak about this is frustration from Jesus. They've just conceded, and he's frustrated with Mascherano at the end of the game. They're just frustrated at the Arsenal. Have to keep their emotions intact, and Mikel Arteta is the man to do that at the moment.
But if you're looking on as Manchester City, we shouldn't forget Aston Villa because they win later today. They go 5 points behind us. They draw level on points with City ahead of their game later this evening against Newcastle from 8 o'clock. But if you're looking on and seeing those scenes at the end, you're seeing a fragility, aren't you? You're seeing an opportunity.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, when you listen to Pep Guardiola, he just says we're just focusing on ourselves. We're just focusing on getting our job done. And they've got that experience. They've got that know-how. The manager that's done it. Yes, you can say some of the squad haven't been there. But the fact that Pep Guardiola's been there, that the club's been there, they know how to get over the line. So, yeah, of course, and you can imagine there will be huge pressure, huge emotion, whether that's the fans in the ground, whether that's the players, the manager, because it's been a long time, hasn't it, since they've won the trophy. They've come close so many times. So now it's a case of we just have to get it done. And that game against Wolves, I think, you know, the fact that you can see there, can't you, the Opta predictor.
Is Opta all right?
I was going to say don't ask Mers, but
I
he's
just
not
think
here.
no, and
Loves the
it's just going to be
computer.
close, isn't it? That's the
Yeah.
thing. There's going to be so many more twists and turns to this. So, you know, we can't overreact to one result. I think one week we'll say, oh, it's definitely Arsenal's. The next week it's Manchester City's. We just don't know. And there will be games. Yes, they've got to play each other, but there'll be other games where they could potentially slip up.
And Boydie, what we've seen historically, particularly you remember the Manchester United years under Sir Alex Ferguson, they would always get a result somehow. They were ruthless in their pursuit of Premier League title after Premier League title. How do Arsenal discover some ruthlessness now between now and the end of May?
I mean, looking at them, especially defending now, they're too eager for me. You look at, I think they were praised so much for their, their defensive stability at the start of the season. You look at it now and the bodies getting thrown in front. Gabriel wants to go and header it. David Reyes coming out his goals. I don't think he needs to. It's as if they're trying to make sure that everything's done properly. And when you do that, you end up, maybe making mistakes when you're lunging into things, when you're making decisions that
and
you
that's
just want
born
to
out
clear.
here, isn't it? Because you first 20 games, points per game 2.4.
Simon,
to 1.4.
we were listening. If you go back to the start of the season as well, everybody was talking about Chelsea's record was in doubt. That clean sheet record, the amount of goals. I mean, they've fallen off a cliff in terms of that defensive unit, but I think it comes from further up the pitch as well. They're not creating the same amount. They're definitely not taking the chances that are being created. There's a lot of noise around Arsenal, and you kind of get the feeling that this will just be suiting Manchester City now. There's a lot of noise around Arsenal. There has been for a number of months now. There's an expectation there now, and they're going to have to deliver. They're going to have to find a way to get over. They've been nearly men the last few seasons. They're going to have to find a way to go over the line.
And is key to getting over the line, because you look at goal scorers in the Premier League for them. It's only Gyökeres who's above 5 for them at the moment.
Yeah.
Kai Havertz, we're waiting to see if he's going to be fit enough to play in the North London derby. It sounded reasonably positive from Arteta tomorrow.
Yeah.
Is he potentially the key going forward to keep him fit? Because his influence on the side is huge, isn't it?
Yeah. I think from open play, I think he's got the guile to open up defences, in tight areas. A lot of teams play against him. We don't know how. With Igor too, doesn't decide how he's going to go about it tomorrow. But I would imagine he would sit quite deep and try and counter-attack. So there's not going to be a lot of room to operate, and you're going to need players who can operate in tight areas with disguised passing.
You see Saka in that number 10 role again?
Well, the only reason I don't is because Eze scored a hat-trick in a reverse fixture. So I think possibly Eze plays.
Does he bring him in?
But if Saka...
Purely on what he did in the last North London derby. I mean, I think for
Some
Palace
managers...
last season got a couple against Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a barren spell. Of course he has. And Eze would argue, but I've not had a run of games, really. A run of starts. He's come off the bench and he's failed to impact the game. I think if Eze plays, he plays in the 10, and then Saka will play instead of Madueke on the right-hand side. But, I mean, it's a good problem for Mikel to have, isn't it? We're talking about... we haven't got a problem with the squad. They've ticked that box. They've addressed that from last couple of seasons. So the only problem they've got is in between their ears at the moment, and that's the biggest problem. And they need to get over the line mentally, and they need to do it. You're capable of doing it. They are capable of doing it, but it's all right talking about it. You just need to get on with it and really use some focus of getting it. And like I say, if they do get over the line, they can be a force to reckon with, but it's going to get harder and harder the more years they go and they finish up the bridesmaids.
The title charge has hit turbulence. Back-to-back draws against Brentford and Wolves have raised serious questions about Arsenal's ruthlessness. In a race this tight, drop points don't just hurt, they shift momentum. The biggest concern? Killer instinct. Arsenal have dominated spells of games but failed to put teams away. Title winners punish mistakes and finish chances. And right now, that clinical edge has looked blunt at crucial moments. Defensively, small lapses have proven costly. Concentration in key phases, especially late in matches, could be the difference between lifting the trophy and falling short again. Fine margins decide championships. Now, the North London derby looms large. A clash with Tottenham Hotspur isn't just about rivalry, it's about response. A statement win could silence doubts and reignite belief across the squad and the fanbase. The question isn't whether Arsenal are good enough, it's whether they can be ruthless enough. The title race demands consistency, mentality, and cold-blooded execution. The next 90 minutes could define their entire season. Eyes fire,